Campaigners have won a temporary reprieve for more than 30 people due to be deported to Jamaica by the government tomorrow morning. The Court of Appeal said it wasn't clear that the deportees had adequate access to legal advice. In the last few minutes, though, the Home Office has released this statement. The planned charter flight to Jamaica, it said, is specifically for deporting foreign national offenders. Those detained for removal include people convicted of manslaughter, rape, violent crime and dealing Class A drugs. We are urgently asking the judge to reconsider their ruling, and it would be inappropriate to comment further whilst legal proceedings are ongoing. Well, our chief political correspondent, John Craig, is at the Home Office. And John, clearly the government not backing down on this.
No, they are hoping that the courts will change their mind. The government may well appeal to the Supreme Court. There is some dispute between campaigners for the release of these people or against the deportation and the government about the numbers. Now, the government is saying about 30 people are affected. Campaigners say it's more like 56. Now, there have been fierce clashes in Parliament, as well as demonstrations in Whitehall outside Downing Street tonight, which a lot of Labour MPs attended. In the House of Commons today, there's a row going on most of the day over this. First, there was a clash between Diane Abbott, the Shadow Home Secretary, and Priti Patel. Then there was anger and cries of shame as Priti Patel left the chamber. There was a pretty fierce clash between the Labour MP David Lammy, who asked an urgent question, and the junior Home Office Minister Kevin Foster.
We will not allow foreign nationals who are convicted of the most serious offences, including rape and child sexual abuse, to remain in Britain. Tomorrow's flight is about keeping the public safe. It cannot and should not be conflated with the wrongs suffered by the Windrush generation.
He knows that there are many who are there for non-violent offences. We cannot, at the same time in this House, condemn county lines and those who would pimp young black children in this country and send those same children back.
So a furious David Lammy there, and as the clash demonstrated, there were attempts to link this with the Windrush row. There was a debate on Windrush following that. And campaigners have argued that not all these people are guilty of serious offences, and they also say that some of them were committed a long time ago. Now, welcoming that dramatic ruling from the Court of Appeal, Bella Sankey, who is Director of Detention Action, which went to court, said it was a victory for access to justice, fairness and the rule of law. We don't believe anybody currently detained at Heathrow can be removed on tomorrow's flight. And they are saying 56 people, although the Home Office are saying it's about 30.
John Craig at the Home Office, thank you. A former taxi driver has been found guilty of planning terror attacks on London tourist centres, including Madame Tussauds. Mohseenath Chowdhury was arrested just over a year after he was cleared of targeting Buckingham Palace and attacking police with a samurai sword. Our Home Affairs correspondent Mark White has more.
An ISIS-inspired terrorist who'd already attacked police once before, Musa Chowdhury remained determined to kill, to launch further attacks to satisfy his warped ideology. Now he's finally been brought to justice, convicted of planning acts of terror thanks to an undercover police operation. This was Chowdhury in 2017, behind the wheel of this car as it swerved through bollards in front of a police van outside Buckingham Palace. As officers approached him, they had no idea Chowdhury had a samurai sword in the vehicle. He began punching out at them as they tried to wrestle the weapon from him.
It was an extremely sharp blade on it. I'm amazed that myself and Ian didn't get more injuries than what we ended up with, to be honest.
I wasn't going to relinquish the grip that I had, but obviously when we started struggling, the whole implement came towards me and embedded into the seat base.
At his trial, a jury believed Chowdhury's assertion that he hadn't intended to injure anyone, that he simply wanted to commit suicide, to be shot dead by armed police. This despite his possession of extremist material and of a professed hatred for the Queen and the military. After his acquittal, concerned that Chowdhury continued to pose a severe risk, authorities kept a close eye on him, eventually launching a full-blown operation involving 3 undercover officers who won his trust as he bragged about his determination to launch other attacks.
Musa Chowdhury was an extremely dangerous individual. He was absolutely committed to causing harm to as many people as he could.
Chowdhury discussed targeting a number of busy London locations, including the Gay Pride Parade, Madame Tussauds and an open-top tourist bus. He bought this replica Glock pistol and expressed his desire to get hold of a real gun. He kept a knife under his bed and practiced stabbing the side of his canvas wardrobe. And he used these wooden swords to get fit and train with his sister, Sanea Chowdhury, who's also been convicted of failing to disclose information to authorities. In court and in an earlier police interview, Musa Chowdhury denied he was training for an attack.
It's nothing to do with an attack at all.
Okay.
You also obviously know I've been in prison before, and I've been here before as well. And a lot of my interests fall under all these like weightlifting, martial arts training. So anything you want to ask, I can answer it honestly, because there's no attack planning at all.
Although the jury at his previous trial cleared him of launching a terrorist attack outside Buckingham Palace, this time round, Chowdhury's claims of innocence were not believed. The ISIS-supporting former cab driver is now a convicted terrorist. Mark White, Sky News.
The United Nations senior official in Lebanon has told Sky News the economic chaos in the country could trigger a new migrant crisis in Europe. Well, hundreds of thousands of people have been protesting since October, upset at government corruption and economic mismanagement. 220,000 people have lost their jobs in the last 5 months. Around 10% of companies in Lebanon have gone out of business. And banks are putting limits on the amount of money people can withdraw, in some cases the equivalent of 150 UK pounds every 2 weeks. Our Middle East correspondent, Mark Stone, reports now from Beirut. Have just given an update saying that 103 people... Well, let's just bring you some breaking news on the coronavirus. Officials in China's Hubei province have just given an update saying that 103 people have died in the last 24 hours from the virus. They've also confirmed another 2,097 cases. That takes the total number of deaths worldwide now to 1,103. After Storm Ciara swept across the UK, the cleanup began today for the destruction she left behind. One man in Hampshire died after a tree fell onto his car in strong winds. More weather warnings are in place for snow and ice tonight. In some Yorkshire towns, there's frustration that despite millions of pounds being spent on flood defences, Storm Ciara ripped them apart. Our correspondent Tom Parmenter has more from Yorkshire. For years, Sinn Féin has been portrayed as Ireland's pariah party, but now it's broken through in an election which shook the foundations of the country's politics. With weeks of coalition negotiations to come, Sinn Féin's president, Mary Lou MacDonald, says she'll now press for a border poll. But why did voters in Ireland shun the two parties that have dominated for decades? Our Ireland correspondent, Stephen Murphy, went to Cork to find out.
Popularity into power. Stephen Murphy, Sky News in Cork.
Once Upon a Time in Hollywood and Judy, a film about Judy Garland, were two of the winners at this year's Oscars, but it was Parasite, the South Korean dark comedy thriller, that won the most awards.
And the Oscar goes to Parasite.
Well, it's the first time a South Korean film has won an Oscar, and the film's success also made history, becoming the first non-English language film to win Best Picture in the 92-year history of the awards.
I feel like a very opportune moment.
Well, that was News at 10. Coming up, the press preview, including this story on the front of The Guardian. Johnson pledges a £5 billion overhaul of bus services to fend off a revolt on